Subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories and thrilling narratives that keep you on the edge of your seat. I arrived at the annual office retreat, buzzing with excitement for a weekend of bonding and strategy talks. The mountain lodge was stunning, nestled among pines, with a crisp breeze carrying the scent of adventure. My team, a mix of seasoned pros and eager newbies, bustled around, unpacking and chatting. I'd spent weeks preparing my pitch for the investors attending, hoping to shine. My boss, Karen, was her usual commanding self, directing everyone like a stage manager. She'd always been tough but fair, or so I thought, until today's events unfolded. The group photo was scheduled for noon, a moment to capture our unity. I wore my best blazer, feeling ready to make an impression. As we gathered on the lawn, I positioned myself in the front row, smiling broadly. Karen's voice cut through, organizing us by rank, and I waited for my cue. But then she skipped me, pointing others to their spots without a glance my way. Confusion hit me hard. Why was I being ignored? I stood there, frozen, as the camera clicked. The photo session ended, and I lingered, hoping for an explanation, but Karen moved on to lunch plans. My colleagues dispersed, laughing, unaware of the slight I just endured. I felt invisible, my confidence shaken, like a kid overlooked at a school event. I replayed the moment, wondering if I'd misread her signals. Maybe it was an oversight, I told myself, but doubt gnawed at me. I'd worked hard all year, leading projects that saved the company thousands. My performance reviews were stellar, yet here I was, sidelined. I grabbed a coffee and sat by the lodge's fireplace, staring into the flames. The investors were due tomorrow, and I needed to refocus. My pitch was polished, data-driven, ready to impress. Still, Karen's dismissal stung, a quiet wound I couldn't shake. I resolved to confront her later, but for now, I'd play the team player. The retreat's agenda promised games and talks, but I felt like an outsider already. That evening, we played team-building games under string lights, laughter echoing through the night. I joined in, forcing a smile, but Karen's coldness lingered in my mind. She praised others' ideas, her eyes skipping over me like I wasn't there. I wondered if I'd done something to upset her, but nothing came to mind. During a strategy session, I offered insights, but she brushed them off. My colleagues noticed, exchanging awkward glances, but no one spoke up. I felt my confidence waver, yet I refused to let it show. The investors' arrival loomed, and I clung to the hope they'd see my value. I stayed up late, reviewing my slides, perfecting every detail. Karen's behavior was a puzzle I couldn't solve yet. I told myself to focus on what I could control, my work. The night grew quiet, and I drifted to sleep, determined to prove myself. Morning came, and the lodge buzzed with anticipation for the investors' visit. I dressed sharply, my nerves tingling with a mix of dread and excitement. Karen led the morning briefing, her voice crisp, assigning roles for the day. Once again, my name was absent from her plans, a deliberate omission. I bit my lip, holding back frustration, and focused on my pitch. The investors arrived, a group of sharp-eyed suits exuding authority. We gathered in the conference room, sunlight streaming through wide windows. Karen introduced the team, her words glowing for everyone but me. I sat quietly, my heart pounding, waiting for my moment. The investors listened intently, jotting notes, their faces unreadable. I clutched my laptop, ready to present my project. This was my chance to stand out, despite Karen's efforts to dim my light. My pitch began, and I poured everything into it. Data, passion, vision for the company's future. The investors leaned forward, eyes locked on me, asking pointed questions I answered with ease. Karen sat stiffly, her smile tight, as if my success pained her. I felt a surge of pride, knowing I'd nailed it despite her neglect. After my presentation, the investors clapped, a rare gesture that warmed the room. One of them, Mr. Daniels, asked to speak with me privately. Karen's face twitched, but she nodded, unable to object. We stepped outside, the mountain air cool against my flushed skin. Mr. Daniels praised my work, saying it aligned perfectly with their goals. My heart soared. Validation at last. He asked for more details, and I dove in, energized. Karen's shadow faded as I seized this moment. Back inside, the investors huddled with Karen, but their eyes kept finding me across the room. I caught whispers of my project being discussed, my name on their lips. Karen's demeanor shifted. She was less commanding, almost rattled. I stayed professional, engaging with colleagues, but my mind raced. Why had she sidelined me? Was it jealousy or something deeper? The investors requested a follow-up meeting, but only with me. Karen's jaw tightened as she relayed the message, her voice clipped. I nodded politely, hiding my triumph. This was bigger than her now. My work had spoken for itself. Lunch was served, but I barely ate, buzzing with adrenaline. The retreat suddenly felt like my stage, not hers. I glanced at the group photo on display, my absence glaring, but it didn't sting anymore. The afternoon brought more discussions, and the investors kept pulling me into their orbit. They asked about my other projects, my vision for growth, ignoring Karen's attempts to steer the conversation. I answered confidently, feeling like I'd finally found my place. Karen's exclusion had backfired. She'd underestimated me. My colleagues began to notice, their respect for me growing visibly. I felt a shift, like the tide turning in my favor. The investors' interest was a lifeline, pulling me out of Karen's shadow. I wondered if she'd face consequences for her bias, but that wasn't my focus. My goal was to keep shining, to prove my worth beyond this retreat. As the day wound down, I felt unstoppable. The lodge's warm glow matched the fire in my chest. Evening fell, and the investors invited me to dinner, a rare honor Karen couldn't gatekeep. We sat at a long table, their questions sharp but encouraging, probing my ideas. I spoke freely, my confidence soaring with every nod they gave. Karen sat at the far end, her silence louder than words. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. My work was my voice, and it was being heard. The investors shared their plans, hinting at a bigger role for me. My mind spun with possibilities, promotions, new projects, real impact. I thanked them, staying humble, but inside, I was electric. Karen's oversight had been a mistake, and now she was sidelined. The retreat, meant to unite us, had exposed her flaws. I walked back to my room, the stars bright above, feeling like I'd won. The next morning, Karen approached me, her tone softer, almost apologetic, but I wasn't buying it. She mentioned the photo, claiming it was a mix-up, but her eyes avoided mine. I nodded, keeping my cool, knowing her words were damage control. The investors had already emailed me directly, bypassing her entirely. They wanted me on their next project, a game-changer for my career. I felt a quiet thrill, realizing I'd outgrown her shadow. My colleagues whispered about the shift, some even apologizing for not speaking up earlier. I brushed it off, focused on the future. The retreat was ending, but my journey was just beginning. Karen's mistake had lit a fire in me, one that wouldn't fade. I packed my bags, ready to return to the office as a new leader. As we boarded the bus home, the investors shook my hand, their respect clear in their grip. Karen sat alone, her authority diminished, a ghost of her former self. I didn't revel in her fall. I was too busy planning my next steps. The group photo, once a wound, was now a footnote in my victory. My pitch had opened doors Karen couldn't close. I stared out the window, the mountains fading, my mind on the future. The retreat had been a test, and I'd passed with flying colors. My colleagues chatted, their voices lighter, as if sensing the shift. I smiled, knowing I'd earned my place, not just in the photo, but in the company's future. This was my moment, and I was ready for more. The bus rolled on, carrying me toward new horizons. Back at the office, the energy was different. My colleagues treated me with newfound respect. Word of the investors' interest had spread, and I felt eyes on me. Karen called me into her office, her tone professional but strained. She congratulated me, but her words felt hollow, like a script she had to read. I thanked her, keeping my guard up, knowing trust was broken. My inbox buzzed with messages from the investors, outlining next steps. They wanted me to lead a new initiative, a role Karen couldn't veto. I dove into planning, my confidence growing with each task. The office photo from the retreat hung in the hall, a reminder of her slight. But now it fueled me, a symbol of what I'd overcome. I wasn't invisible anymore. My work was too loud to ignore. Every meeting, every email, felt like a step toward something bigger. The new project kicked off, and I was in my element, leading with clarity and purpose. The investors checked in regularly, their trust in me unwavering. Karen stayed on the sidelines, her influence waning as my star rose. Colleagues who'd once overlooked me now sought my input, their attitudes shifting. I didn't hold grudges. I was too focused on results. The project was ambitious, aiming to streamline operations and boost revenue. I worked late nights, refining every detail, driven by the chance to prove myself. Karen's absence from my daily work was a relief, but I stayed professional. The office buzzed with talk of my success, and I felt the weight of expectation. I welcomed it, knowing I'd earned this spotlight. The retreat's sting was fading, replaced by purpose. I was building something real, and no one could take that away. Weeks passed, and the project gained traction, earning praise from the top brass. The investors invited me to present at their annual board meeting, a huge honor. Karen was invited too, but only as a formality, her role diminished. I prepared meticulously, knowing this was my chance to cement my place. The boardroom was intimidating, filled with industry giants, but I was ready. My presentation was sharp, my vision clear, and the room hung on my words. Questions came fast, but I answered with confidence, drawing on months of hard work. The applause was loud, genuine, and I felt unstoppable. Karen sat quietly, her face unreadable, but I didn't care. This was my moment, not hers. The investors shook my hand, their eyes gleaming with approval. I left the room on a high, knowing I'd made my mark. Back at the office, the dynamic had shifted permanently. Karen's authority was a shadow of what it was. She tried to reassert control, but her team gravitated toward me. I didn't seek power, but it found me, built on the strength of my work. The investors' project was now the company's priority, and I was its face. Colleagues asked for my advice, and I shared it freely, building alliances. Karen's coldness at the retreat seemed like a distant memory, but I didn't forget. It drove me to work harder, to ensure I'd never be overlooked again. My desk was covered in notes, charts, and plans for the future. The office photo still hung in the hall, but I barely noticed it now. My focus was on the next challenge, the next win. I was no longer the ignored employee. I was a leader. The project's success brought media attention, and I was asked to represent the company in interviews. Karen was nowhere in sight, her absence noted by everyone. I spoke confidently, crediting my team while showcasing my vision. The articles praised my leadership, calling me a rising star. I felt a mix of pride and pressure, knowing I had to keep delivering. My colleagues celebrated with me, their support genuine now. The investors sent a personal note, thanking me for my impact. I framed it, a quiet reminder of my journey. Karen's mistake had been a gift, pushing me to fight for my place. The office felt like mine now, a space where I belonged. I walked the halls with purpose, my steps sure. The retreat had been a turning point, but this was my new reality. Months later, the project was a resounding success, exceeding all targets. The investors offered me a promotion, a role that would report directly to them. Karen was informed after the fact, her input no longer needed. I accepted, knowing this was the culmination of my hard work. My new office was bright, with a view of the city skyline, a far cry from the retreat's photo snub. Colleagues stopped by to congratulate me, their smiles warm. I thanked them, staying humble, but inside, I was soaring. Karen's actions had lit a fire, but I'd built the blaze. The company was changing, and I was at its heart. The group photo was taken down, replaced by a new one, with me front and center. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. My success was louder than any slight. As my role grew, I mentored younger colleagues, sharing what I'd learned. I wanted them to feel seen, never ignored like I was. Karen was reassigned to a smaller division, her influence all but gone. I didn't wish her ill. She'd made her choices. My focus was on building a team that valued everyone's contributions. The investors trusted me with bigger projects, and I delivered every time. The office culture shifted, becoming more open, more collaborative. I led by example, showing that hard work could break any barrier. The retreat felt like a lifetime ago, a lesson in resilience. I kept the investor's note on my desk, a reminder of my worth. My colleagues looked to me for guidance, and I embraced the role. The company was thriving, and I was a key part of it. At the next retreat, I was asked to lead the opening speech, a nod to my new status. The lodge was familiar, but I was different, stronger, surer. I spoke about teamwork, resilience, and seizing opportunities. My colleagues listened intently, their respect clear. The investors sat in the front row, nodding as I spoke. Karen was there, quieter now, a spectator in my story. I didn't mention the photo incident. It was irrelevant now. The new group photo included everyone, with me at the center, smiling. I felt no bitterness, only gratitude for the journey. The retreat ended with applause, my name on everyone's lips. I walked the grounds, the mountains as beautiful as ever. This time, I wasn't overlooked. I was the one leading the way. Back in the office, I settled into my new role, overseeing multiple teams. The investors relied on me for strategic decisions, their trust unwavering. My projects set new benchmarks, earning the company industry awards. Colleagues from other departments sought my advice, and I built bridges across the organization. Karen's name rarely came up. She'd faded into the background. I didn't dwell on her mistake. It had shaped me, but it didn't define me. My focus was on innovation, growth, and impact. The office photo was a distant memory, replaced by framed articles about our success. I worked late, not out of obligation, but passion. The company felt like a home I'd helped build. Every challenge was a chance to shine, and I was ready for them all. A year after the retreat, I was invited to speak at an industry conference. The audience was packed with leaders, all eager to hear my story. I shared my journey, from the photo snub to leading major projects. I didn't name Karen, but the lesson was clear: resilience wins. The crowd applauded, and I felt a surge of pride. Backstage, the investors congratulated me, hinting at even bigger opportunities. My colleagues watched the live stream, cheering from the office. I returned to a hero's welcome, my desk covered in notes of support. The company had changed, and I'd been a catalyst. The retreat's pain was a distant echo, drowned out by my success. I looked ahead, ready for the next chapter. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It inspired others. The company's growth accelerated, and I was at the forefront, shaping its future. New projects poured in, each one a chance to innovate and lead. The investors named me their go-to person, bypassing traditional chains of command. My team thrived under my guidance, their ideas flourishing in a culture I'd helped build. Karen's name was rarely mentioned. She'd left for another company. I wished her well, but my focus was here now. The office was vibrant, a hub of creativity and drive. I mentored new hires, ensuring they felt valued from day one. The old group photo was gone, replaced by a mural of our achievements. I walked the halls with confidence, knowing I'd earned my place. Every meeting was a chance to push boundaries. The retreat had been a spark, but I was the fire. My promotion brought international attention, with clients requesting me by name. I traveled to meet them, pitching bold ideas that won contracts. The investors joined me on key trips, their faith in me unshakable. My colleagues back home followed my updates, inspired by our shared success. I built a network of allies across the industry, my reputation growing. The retreat snub was a story I told sparingly, a lesson in perseverance. My office was filled with awards, each one a testament to my work. I stayed grounded, remembering where I started. The company's stock soared, and I was credited in board reports. Karen's shadow was gone, replaced by my own light. I worked with purpose, driven by passion, not revenge. The future was mine to shape. At home, I reflected on my journey, grateful for every challenge and triumph. The retreat had been a low point, but it taught me to fight for my worth. I framed the investor's first email, a reminder of the moment everything changed. My colleagues became friends, their support a constant strength. I hosted team dinners, fostering the unity I'd once craved. The office was a place of growth, not exclusion, because of my efforts. I planned new initiatives, each one bolder than the last. The investors saw me as a partner, not just an employee. My story spread, inspiring others to stand tall. The retreat's pain had forged me, but it didn't define me. I was a leader now, and my work spoke for itself. The next board meeting was a milestone. I was invited to join as an advisor. The investors praised my vision, calling me indispensable. My colleagues watched in awe as I took my seat among the executives. I spoke with authority, my ideas shaping company strategy. The room listened, and I felt the weight of my journey. Karen's absence was a footnote, her mistake a distant memory. I focused on the future, on building something lasting. The office buzzed with excitement, my team energized by our shared goals. I mentored more employees, ensuring no one felt invisible. The retreat's lesson lived in me, but so did my triumph. I looked out at the skyline, my heart full. This was my place, earned through grit and grace. The company launched a new division, and I was asked to lead it. The role was daunting, but I was ready, fueled by years of hard-won experience. My team grew, a mix of veterans and fresh talent, all united by purpose. The investors gave me full control, their trust absolute. I built a culture of inclusion, where every voice mattered. The retreat snub was now a story I shared to inspire, not to dwell on. My office was a hub of ideas, with whiteboards covered in plans. Colleagues from other firms reached out, drawn to my success. I stayed humble, knowing how far I'd come. The company's growth was tied to my vision, and I embraced the challenge. The past was a lesson, but the future was mine to create. Industry awards piled up, and I was named a top innovator in our field. The recognition was humbling, but I shared it with my team. We celebrated together, a far cry from the retreat's cold exclusion. The investors hosted a gala in my honor, a night of speeches and applause. I stood on stage, thanking those who'd believed in me. Karen's name never crossed my lips. She was irrelevant now. My focus was on the people around me, my team, my allies. The office photo was replaced by a collage of our victories. I worked harder, driven by the chance to make a difference. The retreat had been a spark, but I'd built an inferno. My legacy was growing, and I was just getting started. My new division broke records, setting a new standard for the company. Clients praised our work, and competitors scrambled to keep up. The investors leaned on me for strategic moves, my voice shaping their decisions. My team was a powerhouse, each member valued and empowered. I reflected on the retreat, marveling at how far I'd come. The snub had been a catalyst, pushing me to prove my worth. Now I was a leader, not just in title but in action. The office was a place of possibility, built on the culture I'd created. I mentored others, sharing the lessons of my journey. The investors' trust was my foundation, but my drive was my own. I looked to the future, ready for more challenges. Don't miss out. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of triumph and resilience.